In its most condensed form, literacy is basically the ability to read, write, and to do arithmetic. However, by definition, literacy, according to UNESCO, literacy is the ability to identify, understand, interpret, create, communicate, and commute using printed and written materials associated with varying contexts. So the ability to use printed material means that you are literate. That's the basic form of literacy. For purpose of this presentation, we are going to be focusing on the reading aspect of literacy, and we define reading as a multifaceted process which involves identification of words, construction of understanding from them, coordinating, identifying words, and making meaning so that reading is automatic and accurate, which means you're achieving fluency. So the three things that we'll be looking at is word recognition, comprehension, and fluency. Your ability to do that means that you are literate. Now, why is all of this important? The ability to function in society means that you have to, reading is everywhere. We do everything involves reading. If we are unable to read, we are unable to function in society. So much so that, according to statistics, the global literacy rate for children 15 and older, it has remained unchanged since 2015. 86% of adults in 2019 are not literate. That means 773 million youths and adults are not literate. They cannot read, recognize words, read words, or comprehend what they are reading. The global literacy rate for a smaller bracket of individuals, 15 to 24, is 92%, which is equivalent to 100 million youths lacking basic literacy skills. That's a lot of kids that are unable to do basic reading. According to the National Assessment for Education Progress in the United States, 85% of Black students lack proficient reading skills. That's a lot. From a Caribbean's perspective, 98.5, although our literacy rate stands at 98.5, which is good, 4 in 5 sixth graders, which would be like high schoolers, are unable to have basic literacy skills. So while the rate may be high and it reflects great, there are still children that are unable to have basic reading comprehension skills. In 2018, the Secondary School Assessment, Entrance Assessment, SEA, examination results showed 2,500 students scoring below 30%. So from primary school, we realized there's an issue in 2018. Yes, we had the pandemic and that had a severe impact on our education system and, well, the world in general. 9,000 students still scored below 50%. This is some very interesting and shocking statistics that we are sleeping on. What is being done based on these statistics? Why is this happening? It's happening because 1 in 5 persons could be a dyslexic person. Dyslexia is a word of Greek origin. Dys as a prefix means impaired, while lexica as a base word comes from the word lexicon, which means word. Therefore, students with dyslexia are impaired in word level skills, such as decoding, reading, and spelling. However, dyslexia is not just a reading problem. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. That means it deals with your nervous system and the way in which your brain functions. A dyslexic child does not get cured from dyslexia. They don't have control over the fact that they can't decode words and they can't spell. Their brain is not equipped to do that because it's neurobiological. When some of the major characteristics of dyslexia.
Phone outside.
I think somebody's mic is on. Yes. So the major characteristics of dyslexia deals with accurate or difficulties in accurate or fluent word recognition, poor spelling and decoding abilities. When you are unable to recognize the letter to begin with, far less the sound associated with that letter, you are unable to put letters into words, meaning you are unable to read and spell. So from the beginning, you have a problem in terms of how you're going to be facing reading in the classroom. So what does this actually look like in the classroom? Yes. What does this actually look like in the classroom? In the classroom, there are the researchers have identified three kinds of developmental reading disabilities. Phonological deficit, which deals with oral language. You have a problem with oral language to begin with. Processing speed and orthographic processing, meaning that you are unable to recognize words. You have a naming speed problem. You cannot see an item and recognize the item or say the name of the item in a fast process, and you have a fluency issue. Comprehension. Now, when you have a problem with oral language, it builds on the fact that you can't name words, you don't have fluency, which also builds on the fact that you won't have comprehension. However, comprehension on its own can also be related to, it may not be as a result of the first two. It may be an issue related to social linguistic disabilities, vocabulary weakness, general language learning disorders, or learning difficulties that are associated with abstract reasoning or logic. So while these three kinds of reading disabilities overlap, they each are distinct in its own way. Again, how does this actually look in the classroom? We're talking about reading. The reading impaired child is a child that scores below the 30th percentile in basic reading skills. 70 to 80% of these children have problems with accuracy, fluent word recognition. That is originated in phonological weakness, meaning that they don't have basic phonological awareness, phonological memory, rapid automized naming. This looks like they are unable to detect and create rhyming words. They are unable to break words into syllables. They are unable to identify phonemes or individual sounds of the word at the beginning or the end. They are unable to isolate words or sounds. They are unable to delete or substitute phonemes within words. So if you tell them, take the word CAT and make it into mat, they don't know which letter to substitute. They also struggle with remembering parts of a word, so blending is difficult. Those, our blending sounds, our blending digraphs and stuff like that, they are not going to get that. They're also going to take longer to recall the name of things. So you may have a cup, what is this? And they're struggling to tell you what it is. Why is all of this happening? As a neurobiological disability, dyslexia is also genetic. In 1990, there were 100,000 Trinidadians with dyslexia. Since 1990, if it's genetic and you do the math, there are a lot of children walking out there that is possibly dyslexic in our classrooms, struggling and being forgotten. In Antigua and Barbuda in 2000, out of 3,182 students, 52.2% passed their reading assessment. That initiated a decision to put resources into the development of a specific learning disability program catered specifically to deal with dyslexia. So in the Caribbean, we do have a dyslexic problem. Things are being done, but is it enough? Now, back to this diagram that we have on our screen right now. Dyslexia is neurobiological and it is genetic. The normal brain, the average brain, or the reading brain, certain parts of our brain is used to generate certain activities or actions during the reading process. We have the parts of the brain that is responsible for language and meaning, the parts of the brain that is responsible for speech and sound, letters and text. When you are reading, all of these things work together to produce the reading process. A dyslexic student, unfortunately, do not have all those parts of his brain or her brain actually functioning. It needs to be triggered. It needs to be developed. It's not developed. So as you can see, its part is missing. So when you're behind this child to read and they are not getting it, and you're wondering why, and they're frustrated, it's because they can't do it. They literally cannot do it. So what does this actually look like again in the classroom? Your student may not be able to recognize words accurately. You may show them a picture of a rabbit. The word rabbit is written underneath that picture, and they say bunny. They don't read fluently or smoothly because they're skipping over words. They may not see simple words like the, of, our sight words that they don't have anything to associate with in terms of a picture. What is a the? What is of? They are unable to see these words. They are a poor speller. They spell based on what they hear. Said is spelled S-E-D, S-E-D. AI does not make a sound that they recognize. They have confusions with the usual P, D, B. While this is not an actual marker for dyslexia in terms of diagnosing dyslexia, it is a marker to say something is wrong, especially after they enter standard 1. They have below average language skills. They are unable to rhyme, and they read in a very monotone style because they are not reading with understanding. They are just reading whatever they see in front of them. When you called upon to read, they become very frustrated. They become disruptive. They are the ones that are starting to give trouble in your classroom. However, despite all of that, dyslexia is not related or connected to intelligence. Einstein was a dyslexic. He had a very high IQ. Dyslexia does not reflect whether or not somebody is intelligent. When a student is struggling like this in the classroom or with themselves, they're going to be frustrated. They know that they are not reading towards the level of everybody else in the classroom. They know that they've been probably told that they are all those words that we saw at the beginning of our presentation. They've been labeled certain things. So they're going to start to feel frustrated. They're going to have distractibility, social isolation, agitation, withdrawal, and aggression. Their mental health is going to be affected. Students who are not progressing at the same rate as their peers feel ashamed of themselves, and they're going to try to hide that reality. According to psychiatrist Donald Natson, in his model of compass of shame, these students start to exhibit signs of attacking themselves. They attack others, they suffer from withdrawal and avoidance. Their mental health is now being affected because they cannot read. Your student is going to start to get depression, anxiety, stress. They are going to be a very sad student or disruptive student in your class. The impact of that is very alarming, to the extent that in the United States, a professor in a talk about dyslexia coined the term school to prison pipeline. He explained that the prison service within some states are gauging their projections based on primary school reading scores. They are preparing their prisons for students coming out of primary school unable to read. That is not good. We currently are dealing with a very severe crime rate within the Trinidad space. Is this because of our literacy issues within our education system? Are we developing the notion that there's a school to prison pipeline? School can be a minefield for those students who have reading challenges. Reading is woven throughout every subject area, meaning that a child who doesn't receive appropriate support falls behind in every single subject. They are being forgotten within the system because they cannot read. In 1995, there was a national literacy survey which concluded 1 out of 4 persons in Trinidad and Tobago is unable to cope with everyday reading and writing, meaning they are unable to read the newspaper, they are unable to read their medicine labels, they are unable to simply understand directions. This was in 1995. Although the statistics is since 1995, it gave birth to the creation of the ALTA program, the Adult Literacy Tutoring Association program. That program strives today. It's very well attended. It's successful. I am a ALTA trained tutor, and I do recommend the program for anybody who has any adult that has reading difficulty. But the mere fact that we do have a program that deals with adult illiteracy is a problem, meaning that our school system is not providing the literacy education that is needed, so society don't need these programs. Similarly, in 2016, in Jamaica, there was a remarkable amount of students, adults unable to read. They had a total of 235,000 Jamaicans unable to read, adults, and that led to the creation of their Jamaican Foundation for Lifelong Learning. The program had hoped to enroll 10,000 adult learners within the period 2017 to 2018. In 1 year, in one enrollment period, meaning one cycle, they surpassed their intended capacity by 200. They had intended to only cater for 150 students, adults, and 200 was placed on a waiting list. Again, the programs are great and they are needed, but the extent to which these programs are striving is what is shocking and what should be addressed. So we've heard the statistics, we've heard the issues in terms of what happens when you forget a child that is not able to read. How can we solve this problem? Providing the proper intervention can lead to the success of a dyslexic. It is not a dim or grim situation because dyslexics are remarkable individuals. The world has benefited from their brilliance of people such as Danny Glover, Tom Cruise, Keanu Reeves, Whoopi Goldberg, Richard Branson, Muhammad Ali, and from a Trinidad space, we have the Archbishop of Port of Spain and our Olympic sailor, Andrew Lewis. These are all, well, a few of the dyslexics that do exist in a global scale. Success is possible. We just need to acknowledge that dyslexics learn differently and should therefore be taught differently. So how do we actually teach a dyslexic? We begin with empathy. We begin with understanding they don't have control over their situation. We begin with changing the way in which we treat our reading challenges within the classroom. Even at home, where you do not belittle them or tell them they are unable to do it. You be positive, you be encouraging. So you start with empathy. They are trying their best. They are not responsible for the fact that their brain is not as the typical reader. Dyslexia is a lifelong disability. I would not say it's a disability per se, but it's a lifelong situation that they have to deal with. There's no cure for dyslexia. However, with the correct interventions, they are able to read. But they need care. They need understanding. They need to be told that they can do it and nothing is actually wrong with them, that they are incapable of learning. That's not the case. You need to advocate for your dyslexic in your life. I cannot stress how much this is important, and we will go into detail in that a little later. But you need to advocate for them to get the resources that they do need. For the educators listening, you need to accommodate your dyslexic in your classroom. Accommodation and modification are two different things. Modification means I'm changing the entire curriculum to suit the dyslexic child. That is not the case. Accommodation means they can learn the curriculum. It's just the way in which it's administered need to be changed. Praise your dyslexic for their accomplishments. Any little accomplishment that they have achieved is worthy of celebration because it's a testing process. It's a trying situation. They tried their best and they did it. I've had dyslexics when they learn to simply read the word cat, it feels like they have received the Nobel Prize because they have been trying so hard. So you need to praise their efforts. Diagnosing. It is sad. It is a sad reality that diagnosing a dyslexic is a very timely and costly undertaking. Diagnosing happens by a psychoeducation test, which is done by a psychologist or a psychiatrist or somebody in the medical field. When I spoke about advocating, this is part of the area in which you need to advocate. As a parent or as a teacher, you need to advocate that your child be tested. How does that happen? In the Trinidad space, the teacher in the school itself, the teacher is the one that is able to recognize, okay, this child needs to be tested. They recommend to the principal recommends the student to student services. Unfortunately, that's where things become frustrating. Student services is overworked, services is understaffed, and you can wait almost 2 years before you are called for a test or an appointment. A child with dyslexia does not have 2 years to wait to get the resources that he needs in order to function in the school system that we have today. Privately, if you take it upon yourself as a parent, it's a costly undertaking. It can start at $5,000 per session for a test. There are some places that you may be able to get it cheaper. However, that's the average cost that I have discovered. It starts at $5,000. And it's a lengthy process because it's several tests that you have to do. Advocate as best as you can to your ministry, to your school, to get your students tested. They need it. There are over 5,000 dyslexic associations worldwide. This link will be shared with you. I think Matthew has the link. He should share it with you in the chat, or you will probably get it after. So there is help available. The dyslexic associations worldwide are responsible for educating the public on dyslexia, training teachers, providing assistance, whether it is for resources or tutors, linking you with tutors. So they are there to help. It's just to access them. The Trinidad and Tobago Dyslexic Association, they offer a training course every July. It is the training course that changed my life. I would not lie. It is a very interesting and in-depth course. You will feel like you are dyslexic halfway through the course. You would unlearn everything that you learned about reading, but it is important. And I recommend every single teacher. It is for teachers only. Unfortunately, it's not open to parents, but if you are an educator, I highly recommend that you take this course. It will help you. The dyslexic teaching method it can work for the ordinary child and within your classroom. So it's not that you have to do something for one child and then you have to do something for another child. If it is used within the classroom on a whole class perspective, everybody gets covered. As mentioned in my introduction, I am for curriculum or education reform, education change. But until then, what can you do in your classroom or within the space that you are operating? First, to begin, you need to acknowledge that no two dyslexics are the same. So much that 30% of students diagnosed with dyslexia also experience at least a mild form of ADHD. Dyslexia can also be, it functions on a spectrum. So some may have difficulty with just letter recognition. Some may have difficulty with everything, including letter recognition, rapid naming, and comprehension and fluency. So it depends on where your child is at or your student is at, but no two are the same. And also, if your child have another disability, such as autism or any of those on the any other disability, it can be a result, meaning that dyslexia can develop within the child because of that disability, or vice versa. Again, it is neurobiological. So when you have things that are affecting your brain, and some of these disabilities are neurobiological in origin as well, they tend to have an effect on dyslexia. So in your classroom, at what you can do right now, because you don't have control over many things, and I acknowledge that, you can use large print text for worksheets, provide colored strips or bookmarks to help them focus, or you can use a highlighter. I'm reading this line highlighted so they'll know where to start. Use visual schedules and also read them out loud so they know, okay, break time is at 12. I see a sign that's telling me that's happening, or we're changing classrooms. I see a sign, I know what's going on. Provide extra time. They are not going to complete reading and writing activities at the same time as anybody else in your class. They're going to need help. They're gonna need somebody to help them during class. I do advocate for a reading buddy. This person is the person that's gonna help them read content, not help them do their work, like give them the answers or anything like that, but they're gonna do the reading for them. Offer the student multiple opportunities to read the same thing. They're not gonna get it in the first go. Sometimes they're gonna read one sentence. It's gonna take them 15 minutes or more to read one sentence, and they're not going to understand what that sentence was in the first place. So they're going to need time, and they're going to need multiple opportunities. I do know that we are limited in how we assess or can assess our students based on the education system in which we function. It's very strict, and we don't have a lot of wiggle room. But if you can, by all means, please do. Grade your students on content that needs to be mastered and not things like spelling or reading fluency. Acknowledge that these are things that they are not going to get. Allow understanding to be demonstrated in different ways. If it is that you can give a project instead of a written test, if it is you can do a multiple choice instead of actually open-ended answers, do that. Again, which falls into providing various ways for test questions to be responded. When they have to do comprehension, do sentence starters so they know where they're starting. Because if you ask them just a general comprehension question, they already struggle to get through the passage. They're not going to be able to figure out what you're asking them now. So yes, we've come to this webinar today, or lunchtime series today. We've heard the topic about dyslexia. Some of you are probably interested in what is dyslexia. Some of you are dealing with dyslexics and you don't know what to do with them anymore. Like you've tried and you're feeling helpless and hopeless. So what is the plan forward? Our schools need ambitious instruction. We need instruction that is challenging, yet engaging, clear, well-structured, aligned across grade levels, and encourage students to build and apply knowledge. The current way in which our content is presented to some of our students right now. It's very robotic. They are focused on drilling past papers. We are just focused on passing a test as opposed to actually building knowledge that could be applied. So we need, again, I am for curriculum change. So we do need ambitious instruction. How is this done? This is done with teaching staff that works together, sharing knowledge and student information. When I say sharing student information, this is very, very, very important. When a child moves from one class to the other, they just go up and the most you get is a report book. That's not going to help me. I need to know what are these kids struggling with? What are their needs? What are their strengths? What am I getting in my classroom now? If I have a teacher that, if we are a collaborating teaching staff, help me understand the students that you've just taught for a year and something, so that they now become my students that I could continue where you've left off. Effective leaders. We need leaders that are able to guide, inspire, and support our teachers. We need principals that understand the limitations in which the classroom teachers are functioning. We need principals to understand the limitations that the kids are dealing with. So we need leaders that are not just there to say follow instructions. They're not just there to bark instructions at you. I need this form, I need this document. That's not what we need. We need effective leaders that could also advocate on behalf of their school, behalf of their teachers, on behalf of the students within their school, to the ministries for change within that school system. I cannot stress how much we do need involved families. We need involved families to the extent that you are required to build meaningful and supportive relations with the teachers or the people working with your kids. When homework is sent, you actively involved in the homework process. If something's not working at home, a child is having a problem with a topic, there's an open communication between teacher and parent, so that's like, hey, Miss, Jimmy is not getting it. He's not getting it. We tried, he's not getting it. Can you do it over with him? I call up Miss Smith. Jimmy is not getting his letters. Can you do letter drills with him? No problem, I'm on it. We need that sort of involvement. It takes a village to raise a child is very, very applicable when we talk about supportive environments. When the village, the supportive environment, supports education and works hand in hand with the schools, your voice becomes louder. And the louder your voice, the more our governing bodies are able to hear and try to provide the needs that we are asking for. You need, when literacy is placed at a high level within the government system, in the country system, we have a reading society. When you don't have interest in reading, you don't have a reading society. And reading is essential. It's essential because it's needed to function in society. So, how can you take action to make all of these things happen? Join the conversation. You've started by showing up here today, so I commend you. Congratulations, you've started. Join the conversation. We have a Facebook group that I think Matthew will also share with you all. And in that conversation, you are trying to raise awareness on not just dyslexia, but literacy in general. The ability to read is important. The fact that we have, although we have all these high literacy rates, which is good, there are still 100 million children unable to read. That's a lot. We need to get that number down. So join the conversation. If you have resources or you are in a position to provide resources, share those resources. You are working in the government system, say, hey, I have access to the government. What can I provide? What can I help? How can I help? Do I need to talk to student services to give that to the, provide more resources for the schools? What can I do? Get involved in the conversation. Be informed. I cannot stress how important this is. Be informed about not just dyslexia, but every reading challenge that exists. Because without that information, you do not know how to ask for help. You do not know what is wrong with your child. You do not know where to start. When you are informed, you are able to make basically that informed decisions and request certain things from a place of concrete information. You're not just guessing. When you get that information, you share that information. There's a lot of people in the Caribbean and within Trinidad and the Caribbean that do not know what is dyslexia and how it affects the students within the classroom. Information sharing about dyslexia and reading disabilities help people to realize, but you know what? Maybe my child may have dyslexia. And all the struggling that I'm doing, probably I need to look at it this way. Help change a view of dyslexia by celebrating dyslexics. That is important because for too long, dyslexics and children with reading disabilities or challenges have been labeled stupid, incompetent, good for nothing, dotish, or all the negative labels that we put on them. And then they are told that they will amount to nothing. And that's not true. And I say this from a very personal perspective because I've had a student that unfortunately was told by a teacher she would amount to nothing because she was dyslexic. Well, they did not know she was dyslexic at the time, but she was struggling to read. And the teacher told her that, and that crushed that child. Thankfully, she triumphed and she went on to university and is doing really great. But being told that you'll amount to nothing by a teacher who you look up at as somebody that is supposed to guide you through society, that could be soul crushing. And that she's lucky she had a supportive family and an involved family. Because left alone, she would have probably had more mental issues or more mental challenges as is seen before in our presentation. Advocate, 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 advocate. I cannot stress how this is important. Advocate, meaning and actively advocate. We do live in a time of social media where it is very easy to share, like, and comment. That is not active advocacy. We need actual action happening. In my last during my when Mr. Batson was talking about in my bio, he mentioned that I hosted the Understanding for Dyslexia webinar information session. At the end of that session, I had told that audience that I had planned to reach out to the public more about dyslexia. And here I am today. I am reaching out more so that people will know about dyslexia. You need to advocate with action. Set goals, be action. I want my teachers to know what is dyslexia. I'm going to set them up with dyslexic training. I am a parent. I want to know about dyslexia. I'm going to research what is dyslexia. I'm going to attend a webinar about dyslexia. Advocate actively. The way forward. This is on a broader sense. I cannot stress, you have to continue being supportive, encouraging, inspiring, motivating, and again, advocating. But from a government level, we need curriculum reform. We need the curriculum to be changed to be all-inclusive. We tend to say that we want an all-inclusive education for all. However, currently, the curriculum and the system does not allow for that. There is the way in which our schools are set up, there are too many teachers unable to treat with the situations that are present in their classrooms. So we need improved training for teachers. The current education training program does not cover teaching dyslexics or children with severe reading disabilities or challenges. That should be in there. Focus on literacy instruction. Without proper literacy instruction, all other subjects don't matter. If I can't read, I can't do anything else. A focus needs to be placed on literacy instruction. Improve our resources and services. As mentioned before, it takes almost 2 years to get an appointment to see student services to get diagnosed. These things need to be improved. From an institutional level, provide alternative assessment options. Curriculum-wide, most countries have to write the CXC exam at the end of Form 5. That CXC exam does not offer for alternative assessment options for dyslexic students. They may offer certain things in the sense that they might be able to get a reader or extra time, but it's still not enough for a dyslexic child to actually succeed at that exam. Recently, last year in the United States, a young boy at high school doing his high school diploma, he passed all his subjects remarkably because it was administered orally. We can take a page out of that book and try to give our dyslexics here a chance that they may actually succeed at a actual level that is equivalent to their intelligence as opposed to their ability to write the exam. Provide resources and support. Again, if it is that you need more readers during the exam, you need to provide more the support in terms of how the exams are printed. That is necessary. From an educator's level, again, lobby for your students to get tested while providing accommodations, not modification, accommodations in your classroom. Get trained. You need to be trained in order to be able to provide the proper literacy instruction needed for a dyslexic in your classroom. At a tutor level, which is like myself, as I said, it takes a village, so it needs to be a collaborative effort between the tutor, the parent, and the educator so that we are all on the same page towards the benefit of the child. Parents, be informed about dyslexia. So you'll be able to advocate for your child. You're able to go to that school and tell the principal or the teacher, this is what my child needs. So we're coming almost to the end of our presentation. Now, information is very crucial to the development and gaining of resources for dyslexics, and equally so is the situation where it comes to reading. Reading is a very complex process. It involves different aspects of it. So again, as part of our understanding series, we'll be hosting the Understanding the Reading Brain in April, Understanding the Science of Reading, and Understanding Structured Literacy. These are some of the programs that we do have carded for this year. So if you wanted more information about that, you can reach out to us. And in closing, I would like to say, as educators, we have a responsibility to every child in our care. Failing to help a child learn to read places them on a path of misery. While the system may be flawed, it doesn't excuse the reality that many of our students are being forgotten. Reading is the gateway to success. Giving them the gift of reading and making literacy that bridge from misery to hope is not that they cannot read, they simply learn differently, and it's time we teach them differently. As educators, it is time we learn to teach our students differently. This is our contact information for anybody wanting to contact us. We are on, you can WhatsApp us or call, email, Facebook, and Instagram. I thank you so much for your patience and your time and for joining us during your lunchtime break.